Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we have the weekly Retribution Paladin rework update. They are putting these out pretty much weekly, as I kind of expect, and we'll kind of go over the changes again to this ret rework. We have some good things. Also, it's up on the PTR, so I'll be able to reference things to the PTR as well. We have a little, blue post from Blizzard, class stuff. Unbound Freedom is now located on the class tree for the Retribution specialization only. So this is now just a ret thing. The Healing Hands is now located on the class tree for ret specialization only. Zealot's Paragon, this is my RIP one, has been removed from the talent tree for ret only. This is sad. I think that I kind of mentioned it in another video where they have to find the perfect balance for it. I think they just said, well, we're just not going to balance it, so they got rid of it. That's sad for me. New talent, though, that replaces it. Vengeful Wrath, Hammer of Wrath always critically strikes. The talent is located on the class tree on the Retribution specialization only. So they're kind of like changing the idea of a class tree versus a ret tree, in that they're making the class tree like more ret focused, like just for ret paladins. So I don't know how I feel about that from a fundamental level, but if it makes the class better, it's a good thing. But I think maybe you should kind of try to do the same, accomplish the same goals, but stay within the parameters that you've set for yourself, would be my thought there. So I like the goals, but I don't necessarily like how they're carrying them out. So let's look at this a little bit. We have Unbound Freedom. It's right here on the class tree. We have Healing Hands right here. This is a just for reference, if you are looking at the talents or anything, you're on the PTR yourself. I just have I've thrown together a possible single target build. No idea what's actually best, but a possible single target build here is just thrown together real quick, just so I have some reference points. I do have Healing Hands as well. That's just because I really think that Guided Prayer is a really good ability, but you pretty much need Healing Hands for it, in my opinion. And so, if you don't want to take that talent, then the Guided Prayer becomes a lot worse. But I really like it, so I wanted to take that in this build that I made. And then we have the talent switch down here. So Vengeful Wrath is in the Zealot Paragon spot. Hammer of Wrath always critically strikes. That's really good. We'll see in the blue notes as well that they just increase the base damage of Hammer of Wrath, so it does feel more like an executability. And if it always crits, obviously it's much more of an executability, whether you're spec'd into it or not. I mean, this, if you are on single target or you're on a raid fight, I mean, this Vengeful Wrath talent is going to be very important for execute damage. Execute damage is important on a lot of fights. The only fights it's not important on really in a boss fight is fights where the last phase is the easiest phase. But any phase where the last phase is the hardest phase, or or it's a time limit or DPS check, whatever, execute is good. So as long as they tune Hammer of Wrath to be a strong execute, then Vengeful Wrath might be a needed ability there. So those are the kind of changes there on the class side of things. Overall, it's fine. I did mention before, and I've seen this actually echoed. I had some pushback, but I've seen it echoed where how you just can take all the throughput talents down here at the bottom, which you can see I have everything taken. And you could argue maybe Divine Purpose, especially for multi-target over some of these other ones. But yeah, this is kind of how it's always going to be, because it's just you can take everything. So in my opinion, that's boring. In my opinion, maybe you make one side better for Holy, you make one side better for Ret, and you put in some other talents in between or whatever that are good, and maybe equal the same. I think people are very confused about throughput versus function. So they can tune an ability or a talent to increase the throughput of it to make up for not getting a different talent, right? They can tune stuff to do that, and so it's not about I want less power by having less abilities. It's that I want the same power. I just want them to do it in a more intelligent way. And that's kind of the point I was getting at with that. I still feel that way for sure, because otherwise we're just going to grab everything down here at the bottom. Seems really easy. Seems like, it's just passive damage at that point, because everybody has it. Everybody has the same thing. There's no nuance to it whatsoever, but that's fine for now. We're still early. Let's go ahead and talk more about the ret side of things. So, new talent, Vanguard of Justice. Your single target holy power abilities cost 1 additional power and deal 20% increased damage. So let's talk about this talent a little bit. I'm really curious on how this is going to work out. because theoretically it's quite good. So I believe that's right here. Vanguard of Justice. Your single target holy power abilities cost 2 additional holy power because I have 2 ranks into it. So instead of costing 3, it would cost 5. So you'd have to build up a lot more. Now, there are a ton of ways to generate holy power with these builds. Art of War has been increased to get more Blade of Justice procs. You can have 2 Blade of Justice. You know, obviously your Blade of Justice generates 2. That's normal. But like you could have 2 applications or 2 possible Blade of Justices. The Crusading Strikes, that's in theory going to increase your holy power a little bit, even though they did nerf it, which we'll talk about that when we get to it. But there's a lot of holy power generation going on in general, so maybe it's playable. I want it to be playable because I think it's kind of cool. We'll see if it is in the long run, but I actually think it's a really cool idea for a talent. And you have, you know, it has to be tuned in a way that makes sense, right? Is spending 5 holy power on an ability to do 40% more damage better than a 3 plus, you know, 1 spender, better than 2 globals, right? Essentially a spender and then another final verdict or whatever. So final verdict, Crusader Strike, final verdict, you know, is that, you know, is the Vanguard of Justice much better than that? Is the 5 holy power much better than that at 40% more damage? I'm not sure if it is or not, but it'll have to be tuned that way or else no one's ever going to use it, right? So I want this to be used, but I have no idea if it will be. New talent, Divine Wrath. Avenging Wrath Crusade duration increased by 3 seconds. I don't know. This talent is just one of those that if it sims well, people will take it. But it doesn't really... 3 seconds just doesn't really, you know, make me too excited by any means. They got rid of Zealot's Paragon, so like probably trying to think of a way to extend. Also, it nerfs Avenging Wrath Might a lot, in my opinion. From even though it's a 1-minute cooldown now, before with the extension you were able to, you know, make it have a very high uptime, and now without Zealot's Paragon you can't do that. 3 extra seconds, I don't know. That doesn't really do it for me. But if it sims really good, you know, you're gonna take it over another talent down here somewhere. You're gonna just take it for the 3 extra seconds if it sims well. But not a very like inspired talent, I would say. Executioner's Will has been redesigned. Now increases the duration of execution sentence and final reckoning by 3 seconds. This is really cool. Obviously, execution sentence is more tailored for a single target. Final reckoning is more tailored for multi-target. However, historically, final reckoning has been very good on single target too. But it's a neat little thing. It's I believe down here. So depending on what you take, execution sentence or final reckoning. I believe what they're trying to do is make execution sentence be the single target choice, and then final reckoning be the multi-target choice. But I don't know if that'll end up being the case or not. It's just going to matter because final reckoning historically has been very, very strong even on single target. So again, that'll just matter on tuning. Abjuration has been redesigned. Now increases critical strike by 2%, and Hammer of Wrath critical strikes cause a blessed hammer to spiral around you, dealing holy strike damage to enemies. So again, this is going to matter on tuning, but this is a really cool thing. Hammer of Wrath critical strikes. So what did we just see over here? Hammer of Wrath always critically strikes. So every Hammer of Wrath you use is going to cause a... Where's it at? Right here. Every Hammer of Wrath you do is going to cause a Blessed Hammer to fall down, doing holy strike damage to enemies. Every single one, because they're all going to crit. So this is potentially a very good talent pairing. Again, we'll see with the tuning of it. It's kind of like in a node where if you want to get like the physical presence and stuff, you have to take it anyways. So hopefully it's pretty good and, you know, serves some sort of purpose. But I do kind of like it. I like the synergy, right? That's kind of the things that I like a lot, is when talents synergize with each other. I think that's kind of neat. Justicar's Vengeance now has a default rate of 8 yards. They're just kind of making it. They're trying to make Justicar's Vengeance like the other option of Final Verdict, right? It's on a choice node. Justicar's Vengeance, give it a little bit of a range. One of them is to do damage. One of them is to heal yourself. One of them might be considered the PvP. One of them might be considered the, you know, the PvE, things like that. Crusader's Reprieve now also affects the range of Rebuke. That's just the talent that increases the range on a couple of your abilities. Final Reckoning now lasts an additional second and you deal 40% increased damage, it was 50%. So they did nerf it a little bit. It lasted, so it's a little bit more forgiving time wise as far as globals, but the damage was nerfed a little bit. So maybe that is just to kind of make it more competitive with execution sentence on single target. We just kind of talked about that. Empyrean Legacy lockout period now 20 seconds was 30 seconds. So Empyrean Legacy is the talent where your final verdict can trigger a free Divine Storm. And so that can happen a little bit more often now, which is good. And it kind of goes with this Inquisitor's Ire thing, because it's kind of like a single target thing. Inquisitor's Ire now gains a stack every 2 seconds. It was 3 seconds. So by doing this, essentially, you could have a little bit of a stronger Divine Storm. You could do your Divine Storm, farming your Empyrean Legacy more often, and generally, basically, with the synergy of these two things, have slightly more damage. I still don't know if it's good or not. Someone actually crunched the numbers, and it wasn't like a good damage profile, but maybe these changes make that better. I'm not crunching numbers on this right now, but the trend of this would suggest that would make the damage better, but by how much, right? Art of War now only triggers once per Crusader Strike cast, whether it be from natural casting or auto attacks. That must have been a bug or something. It shouldn't be. So Art of War can trigger from your Crusader Strike now, and they increased it back up to 20. So they've been playing with this. It was 12, 20, 15. Now it's back up to 20. It's worth mentioning here, they did change the wordage here. Your auto attacks and Crusader Strike have a 20% chance. So that's if you replace your auto attack with Crusader Strike. In last week's video, I mentioned how those two talents didn't work together. So those two now work together. Templar's Verdict and Final Verdict and Justicar's Vengeance have a 20% chance to reset the cooldown of Blade of Justice. That would not be a good talent to choose with this Vanguard of Justice. So it depends on, again, how good that is. If Vanguard of Justice is really good, then you would probably take Art of War every single time. If it's not, then maybe the other ability is actually fine. Obviously, one is a single target thing as well. So that's something to keep in mind as well. We'll go back to the blue. Where are we at? Penitence is now 1 rank. So that's just one of the talents. They reduced the ranks. I will say for the Cleave talents, they still are all 2 ranks. It's still really hard to make a good AoE build, a good multi-target build, Mythic Plus build, if you want to have all the throughput talents. I complained about that a little bit. It's still very hard to do so if you want everything that's like multi-target, mostly just because there's multiple ranks on things. Divine Hammer now deals damage every 2 seconds, was 1.5, and total duration has been increased to 12, was 9. So just kind of like a tuning change there. They haven't done much tuning, which they mentioned, but this is kind of like a little bit of a tuning thing. Kind of like the second one we've seen, actually. Vanguard's Momentum is now 1 rank. So, where did they hide Vanguard's Momentum at? I can't even find it. Vanguard's Momentum. Where did they hide you? Oh well. I'm not gonna look for it all day. But they changed it to only be 1 rank now. Is it here? Okay. Hammer of Wrath now is 1 extra charge, and enemies below 20 health generate 1 additional holy power. So they've nerfed the crap out of this talent. It only has 1 rank now. Hammer of Wrath having extra charge is really, really good though. Again, they're all going to critically strike. They're all going to trigger the hammer thing. So it's still really, really good. But and it generates 1 additional holy power. So it is still more damage during execute phase. But it is also worth noting. I think they might have it here in the notes. That is it right here. No, but they nerfed the Hammer of Wrath. They increased the Hammer of Wrath damage. So the fact that Vanguard's Momentum was nerfed, I guess they're right next to each other. It kind of like just put it into the base damage. So basically, you can execute whether you have some execute power. You have good execute power whether you have Vanguard's Momentum or not. Before you kind of needed Vanguard's Momentum, but now you don't essentially to do that. It's still a good talent to have. Execution Sentence now causes 20% of damage you deal. Was 10%. So again, now we've seen Execution Sentence buff and a slight Final Reckoning nerf. Again, I think this is just a trying to get Execution Sentence to be the single target choice, Final Reckoning to be the multi-target choice, because as of before this, Final Reckoning was just the choice for both, right? Blessed Champion now currently states the additional Crusader Strike targets are hit for 50% damage. That's the cleave ability for Crusader Strike. Commanding Judgment now causes additional judgments to deal 50%, down from 85. Basically, they nerfed the cleave amount for our abilities. High Lord's Judgment now additionally increases the duration of judgment by 2 seconds per rank. That's just fixing the way it just wasn't working right. Tempest of Lightbringer no longer causes or consumes a stack of judgment. So this is just a bug, clearly, right? So Tempest of Lightbringer, that's like the you shoot forward the Divine Storm afterwards. So apparently that Divine Storm could consume a judgment stack. If you did happen to maybe your Divine Toll put a judgment right there, or you just cast judgment right after, it could actually consume that judgment stack, I guess. So that's obviously not a good thing. Not something you would want to happen. Crusader Strikes now generate 1 holy power every 2 attacks, was 1 every 1. So this was very, very holy power powerful. I had read some stuff about this, from the number crunching people. And this was very, very, very powerful. And now it's a little bit nerfed, but it's still a really good talent in my opinion. It might be one of those things though. One thing I could see happening is this one of those things where it's like almost impossible to balance, to where 1 every 1 second is, or every 1 attack is like really, really powerful, but 1 every 2 attacks is too weak, and there's no way you can't do 1.5 attacks. So we could see maybe how this works, because a lot of times that happens, especially the Ret Paladin. Righteous Cause, chance to trigger reduced to 20%, was 25%. Nothing big there, just some very slight tuning. Vanguard's Momentum is no longer grants additional damage to Hammer of Wrath. We just talked about that. The base damage got increased. Fixed an issue prevented Divine Hammer from benefiting from Sanctify. That's the Consecration talent, and Divine Hammer replaces Consecration. Fixed an issue that prevented Consecrated Ground from working correctly with Divine Hammer. That's, again, the ground comes down from your Blade of Justice, so it wasn't triggering your Divine Hammer. Fixed an issue that prevented Imperial Power from triggering from Crusader Strike auto attacks. This is just issues that are, in the game that are, some of them are obvious, some of them aren't, I guess. Fixed an issue that caused Sanctified Place to not work correctly, increase your stamina. As you can see, we're not yet focused on tuning. We're still working on the amount of single target talent choices, Holy Strike, Radiant builds, and Retribution's overall mobility package. But we intend to move into tuning in the near future. So they still are working on the mobility package in theory. So that could, it could be that Heroic Leap talent. That could be, buffing up Judgment of Justice, bringing back Long Arm of the Law. Who knows what that could be as far as that goes. I do like the single target build that I put together as far as like the way it feels. I don't know, again, about tuning. They still have to tune everything. But like I like the single target build. I will say on the multi-target, I still don't like the double ranks of this stuff. I don't think that's really necessary. I think it's like very unnecessary, really. We already have like tons of choice nodes and stuff. I don't think we really need 2 ranks just to do cleave. That's just my opinion. Working on the mobility package is good. I think it's pretty good right now. Unbound Freedom, maybe isn't the best thing in the world, especially on a fight where you actually need freedom, like for utility purposes. But yeah, I mean, I'm overall happy with these changes, the direction where it's going. I'm really sad. Zealot's Paragon, rest in power. You were my hope and dream. I loved it when you were 1 second. Extension, and I'll miss you. And hopefully Vengeful Wrath becomes my new favorite ability. Let's make Vengeful Wrath great, I guess. That's what I'm hoping for. And yeah, I'm generally positive about all this stuff. And I look forward for more updates and more tuning and stuff, and we'll see actual builds being made. Like, I'll actually be going over builds and stuff once there's actual tuning and stuff like that. I guess I should mention really quick, no nerf to Sanctified Plates yet. So they heard and saw feedback for Sanctified Plates and didn't nerf it yet. I will say it's very likely to get nerfed. If it doesn't, it could have, very short term, we will be nearly unkillable. Long term, it could have some bad effects. I do warn people on that. If it's not nerfed, it could have some long-term effects as far as, so let's say they're like, you have too much stuff now. Sanctified Plates is so strong, we're going to get rid of Guided Prayer. We're going to put Shield and Divine Protection back into a choice node where you have to choose between the two. All right, now Ret seems more in line. Sanctified Place is so strong, they don't need all their defenses. And then next expansion, somebody looks at it and goes, that ability is way too strong, and nerf the crap out of it, and don't give us our other stuff back. And that's the stuff you have to worry about. And it's called like flying too close to the sun, or having your cake and eating it too. All these sayings or whatever. That's what I worry about. So as of now, everything is still intact, and I just could definitely see it being nerfed. And if it's not, I just hope that they aren't heavy-handed in destroying some other stuff in the process. So if it's not nerfed now, I hope it's just nerfed a little bit later, and just don't get rid of all these options. I like the options. I want Divine Protection, I want Shield of Vengeance, I want Guided Prayer to be good, or Sanctified Prayer to be good. You know, I want all these other things too. Like, don't take away all my different options you know, just to have one strong defensive like passive or whatever. In my opinion, that's just my opinion though. You don't have to agree with that. But yeah, that's it for this weekly red update here. If I could do maybe a still video. I think I'll maybe doing video about like individual talents and what I think of them, like the new talents and stuff. So I could be doing that, how they work and everything like that. So I could be doing that still this week. But this is like the weekly video that I said I would do. And yeah, as always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel because it helps me out a lot. And other than that, everybody have a good one.